it can ignite, and all you gotta do is bring the light, 'cause a new light shines. Shalom, my friends. Welcome to the Light Lab podcast. My name is Eliana Light, and it is a thrill to welcome you to our 20th episode. Can't believe we are on number 20. I want to give you a huge thank you for listening to the show. We have over 4,200 plays so far, really blowing our minds. We're so grateful that you get to be part of this exploration of tefillah, holding our liturgy up to the light, exploring personal prayer practice. We're so glad that you get to be a part of it with us. And we couldn't do it without you, and we would love for your support in a few ways. First, and most importantly, I think by sharing the show with others. Do you have friends, colleagues, family members who are interested in Jewish learning, maybe who want to learn more about Jewish prayer practice or lead Jewish prayer practice themselves? Please share this with them. Please rate and review us on iTunes and Stitcher. And if you have the capacity, we would really appreciate your monetary support as well. If you go to ko-fi.com/thelightlab, that's ko-fi.com/thelightlab, you can sign up for one of our membership tiers, and there's also a link there to give a tax-deductible donation to the Light Lab. All of this stuff is linked in the show notes, which again are very extensive and you should read them, and all of those links are wherever you found this podcast. Just look at the description and it's right there. Now, friends, I am so excited. I know that I say that I'm excited about the interviews all the time, but this was such a treat and an honor to interview my friend Daphna Rosenberg. Daphna is one of the founders of Nava Tehillah, the Jewish renewal community in Jerusalem, and she has been composing, playing music, and leading with them for 17 years. Now, when I say that Nava Tehillah has transformed what prayer looks like here in the United States, that might sound like an overstatement, but it is not. She is an incredible composer, leader, and teacher, and has toured extensively in the United States, not just sharing the music of Nava Tehillah, but their vision of what prayer is and can be, and their leadership style, which is something that we're going to talk about a lot in this interview. We met at a Union for Reform Judaism biennial convention many years ago, where I got to daven pray with Nava Tehillah. I've actually never been in Jerusalem when they are meeting, which is so sad. But gosh, their influence, again, as we'll talk about, has been so powerful. And you might even know some melodies that have come out of Nava Tehillah. Daphna herself serves in the area of spiritual care for the ill and dying and in creating heart-to-heart connections between people from different cultures and traditions. We talk a lot about her background and her travels and how they inform her work and her spiritual life. She's currently involved in musically and spiritually leading Jewish meditation retreats as part of the Or Halev Center for Jewish Spirituality faculty in Israel. And she's also part of this year's Hadar Rising Song Institute Fellowship cohort, which I am also a part of, and we have gotten to be Chavruta study and connection partners over the past few months, which has really enhanced and impacted my life and is how this interview itself came to be. So I hope you enjoy my interview with Daphna Rosenberg. Keep burning bright. Shine, 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 shine and light. Shine, 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 shine. Keep burning bright. Shalom, Daphna. It's so great to be with you today.
Hi, Eliana. I'm also very excited to be with you.
Amazing. Afternoon for me, evening for you. The fact that we get to talk across such distances is really a blessing, I think.
Yes, it is. Totally not to be taken for granted.
Exactly. So I want to start by having us go way back. What was tefillah for you when you were a child? Tell us a little about that.
Grew up in a liberal, Orthodox North American home in Israel. My parents made Aliyah from Canada when I was 3 months old. My mom is Canadian. My father is originally Austrian, but grew up in Canada, in Israel as a little child and then in Canada. And when we moved to Israel in the 60s, at the end of the 1960s, our home was very different than anybody else that I knew. Like, we didn't drive on Shabbat, but we did speak on the phone. We didn't light fire on Shabbat, but we did turn on the television. There was nothing like that in Israel. It was certainly not in the Ashkenazi world. In the Sephardi world, maybe more. They were like more traditional. Like there was, but it wasn't something that we belonged to. We're an Ashkenazi Canadian family, and it was a combination that wasn't known here at the time. You were either religious, ultra religious, or secular. And tefillah was just wasn't even something. It wasn't about tefillah. It was about going to shul. It wasn't. It didn't. What I knew was like, you go to shul. You go to shul on Chagim, you go to shul on Shabbat morning. I think Friday nights, my father didn't used to go to Bet Knesset, but he used to do his Kabbalat Shabbat tefillah at home. And he always used to call me at the end for singing Yigdal Elohim Chai together. That was like the last piyut of the Kabbalat Shabbat, and we used to sing it together at home. But it wasn't like I never felt like I was praying. When I went to shul, I remember on Yom Kippur, I sat in the back there, like behind the curtain, and my brothers were sitting like on the other side of the curtain, and my brother would show me his machzor, and he would show me, okay, we have another 100 pages, we have another 50 pages, we have another 20, we have another 5.5 hours to the fast. We have another 2 hours to the fast. It was something like that you had to do, and we just did it. And I remember also when my brothers and my father used to say like the Birkat Hamazon at the end of the meal, which was, we also did Birkat Hamazon only on the weekend. We didn't do Birkat Hamazon after the meals during the week. And they would say it so fast, like and I couldn't understand anything. And within 2.5 minutes, it was finished. It was like the goal many times was just like to get it over with. And the chazan that was, I remember when my father used to come from shul, said it was a great tefillah. What made it a great tefillah until these days is if he's short. If you don't spend like 6 or 7 hours at shul, then it's like so I really didn't grow up in something it was just something that you did. You went to shul, you came back, but it wasn't something that I certainly didn't have anything personal, like praying to God or like having any personal conversation with God was nothing that I knew of. I didn't even know who he was. I just knew that he told us that we're not allowed to drive on Shabbat and that we're not allowed to turn the fire and on Shabbat. So I would say that tefillah was really absent from my life when I grew up, as I know it today.
Mm-hmm. And are there experiences that you had or people that you met as you grew older that changed that for you, that brought a little more of that actual tefillah in and changed your idea of what tefillah could be?
Definitely. I think one of the moments that were really life-changing moments were when I was 27-year-old. I went traveling in the Far East, like many Israelis, even though I did it at a bit of an older age. Most Israelis do it right after the army, at the age of 20 or 21. I went to university, I did my BA, and only after that, when I was 27, I went traveling to the Far East, and I went to India. And remember a Friday evening that some friends said there's a Kabbalat Shabbat taking place in some guest house. And I said, I want to come. And there were people of all traditions, all religions. There were people there that were Israelis, Jews, Americans, Indians, people, Europeans, Christian, like all kinds of people. And I remember we sang Mi Ha'ish, Mi Ha'ish, one of the very famous Israeli songs that's sung many times, like even in secular Kabbalot Shabbat. And then there were all kinds of songs sung, in addition also Hare Krishna, singing about Hare Krishna and singing all kinds of devotional songs and singing them, like repeating them and singing them and like really, and from different traditions. And that was for me mind-blowing. I said, wow, it's like, it's a Kabbalat Shabbat. There are people from many different kinds of traditions, and we're all like singing in devotion. the Indians are known for their devotional singing, and the devotional singing style the chanting was part of this Kabbalat Shabbat. And it didn't really matter what the name of the divine was. It could be Elohim, and it could be Hare Krishna, and it could be Jesus. And it was really amazing. I will never forget that Kabbalat Shabbat, because I really felt that was the first time that I sort of felt this kind of connection with the divine, and that something's happening inside of me as I'm singing, like a sense of prayer or connection, I think, is what I felt at the time. And I remember that when I spoke to my father on the phone, I called and I said I was at this amazing Kabbalat Shabbat. Like we sang in Hebrew and in Hindu and in English, and we're all praying, and it was something really different for me. That was very powerful. That was one event that I remember very specifically.
That's so beautiful. I think it's so interesting because I've heard lots of stories, even Jews in America who go to India for the first time, and they've maybe not had a spiritual experience within Judaism, and then they're able to find a spiritual experience or feel one there. Did it kickstart some sort of search for you? Did you feel like you started looking and seeking out those experiences? And where did that journey take you?
Definitely. The answer to your question is definitely yes. I went on a search that took me to any and every kind of community. I found myself in Franciscan Catholic communities, Hindu communities, Buddhist communities, organic communities, rainbow communities. I found myself in every possible spiritual community searching. And I also remember very powerful when I was living about a year afterwards, I ended up traveling for 7 years around the world looking for these spiritual experiences. And part of the travels, I spent 1.5 years in Italy, and I lived on a Franciscan Catholic community in Assisi, which is a very spiritual, beautiful place in the center of Italy, in Umbria, where Francis of Assisi comes from. And that's actually the place where I started to learn to play on the guitar. I'd never played on the guitar before. And I sang my first song playing and singing on the guitar was in Italian, and it was to the words of Saint Francis of Assisi that wrote. He wrote about brother, sun, sister, moon, and about like the world and the animals and everything like the divine providing us with all the love that's around. And that was the first song that I ever sang and played on the guitar at the age of 30. And then I found myself in this Franciscan community, and there was I became very friendly with the monk there. His name was Mario. And he was very excited to have a Jew come and be in their community. And he asked me to join their masses and to read the text in the holy language. I was the only person in the community there that could read Hebrew. And I read the text from Psalms, and then we sang Yemin, Yemin, Yemin Hashem Ostachayil, and we danced to it. They had it was a community of lots of young people, pilgrims. It was like Taizé in France. It's like a very young spiritual sort of teenagers and people in their 20s that come and they spend time together and they sing and they pray. And I joined them, and I sang in Hebrew, and I sang and I danced, and I read the text in Hebrew. And that was also like a spiritual, it was a very spiritual community. There were pilgrims coming from all over Europe to come and stay there. There were from all the countries in Europe, and I joined them. And I was also the only Jew there. They never had a Jew come and spend time with them in their community. So that was also a very meaningful. It was being Jewish and very accepted as being Jewish within a very spiritual environment. It was Christian, but it was also very spiritual, and it was very clear to the people there and to me that the divine and God is the same God. We might have a different practice for it, but it's the same God. And I was very touched by that. I think that one of the things that as I grew up that was hard for me, the concept until today, the concept of am sgula, it's like that we're better or than others, maybe we're different, I can accept, but the being better was something that was very hard for me. And I really wanted to connect to all the different traditions and to feel the gifts that they have to give us from that. And many years later, when I connected with Rabbi Ruth Gan Kagan, who was ordained by Reb Zalman Shechter Shalomi, Reb Zalman was a person who really invited the different religions and traditions. So the Dalai Lama was his friend, and Sufi sheikhs were his friends, and he really opened up to receiving to like a dialogue between the Jewish religion and tradition and the other traditions. And that was something that I really opened up to in my years of travel, by opening up to all these different spiritual traditions before I could come back home to being Jewish and spiritual.
That's such a beautiful sentiment, that you had to kind of collect and feel into and connect with all of these different spiritual paths. And that theme that's coming up for you of it's all different names for the same thing. It's all different names for the same Holy One and holiness. Let's talk about that coming home then. When did that coming home happen? What called you back?
What actually called me back was a broken heart. I was traveling for 7 years. I was in a relationship that ended, and my heart was really broken, and I needed to come home to be carried in my brokenheartedness. And not long after I came home, a friend of mine invited me to a community that was in the desert, in the Judean desert, this spiritual community, and I came there. It was called, they established this community, and they called it the Yeshiva Ashram. It was like the Yeshiva Ashram that had a combination of like things from the Far East and Judaism, and I came there for Yom Kippur. And I remember at the end of Yom Kippur, we stood out on I'm feeling the chills in my body right now, just remembering an experience, which was 20 years ago, standing out on the hills of the Judean desert, looking at the Dead Sea, and the rabbi standing out there, like we're, 200-300 people around him. He has his shofar in his hand, and he's saying, Adonai hu Elohim. Adonai hu Elohim, like the end of Yom Kippur, and then blowing out the shofar. And this is it. This is like standing out there in nature and feeling both the community around after 25 hours of very deep chanting and singing and praying and meditating and learning and being out there in nature. It was really, really powerful. And I think that what made it so powerful for me was taking all these years of collecting the spiritual connection, like feeling the divine in my body, embodying it, and finding the connection to my home, to my personal language. And my personal spiritual language is Judaism. And suddenly to feel that, it was like boom, it's like putting the stecker, putting the how do you say the stecker? The electricity, putting it in the cable into the cable into the socket. That was the feeling that it was like, this is it. Now, after so many years of searching and looking, how can I connect to all this? It's like, I'm not a Buddhist, I'm not a Hindu, I'm not a Catholic, I'm Jewish. But I want to feel something that's like it's mine, and that I can have a personal connection to it. It's not people are telling me what you need to do or not to do. It's not aseh velo taseh. It's like ve'ahavt, like that's the practice. So that was really a very strong turning point in my spiritual path. And there was a lot of, what also was very special there was that all the chanting there, I had learned already how to chant, and I'd been in different places and I was chanting like Buddhist and Hindu and Christian, different kinds of chants. But there, the music and the chanting all came together with the Hebrew language, with the language that was so familiar to me. And I remember there was one of the women that was singing there, that was leading there, one of the prayer leaders there. I remember saying at the end of the Yom Kippur, I said, that's what I want. And then I went to learn how to play the guitar with her, and then I started also later composing music. But there was something there that I noticed and that I pinpointed, and I said, that's what I want.
I got chills also just hearing you speak of it, how incredibly powerful it must have been coming home to that and realizing that the heritage that has brought you to this point can also be a place of great spirit and depth. I think a lot of Jews just don't know because it's not something that they've experienced. And I'm wondering if you can kind of name or pinpoint a few things that make it more likely that a spiritual experience will occur. Like in all of the travels and all of the things you did, are there, common, I guess you'd say, it's like common phenotypes? I think like things that are in common amongst all of those different things that make it more likely for a spiritual prayer to occur within you or within any person.
The first thing that comes into my mind is the music. Like, it doesn't have to be for everybody, but I'm saying, like, from my experience, it was really the music really made a change for me to really embody the words and the prayer. It's like totally different to say the words with no music. I mean, music can be just also singing. It doesn't have to be instrumental. In my personal case, it was also using the instrument. And I noticed it also not only on myself, but on many people, how like the music is such a deep language, and that it's such a deep language that words can't compare to it. It's like the music touches a different place in your mind and in your body than words do. So I felt that was very much something very meaningful. And another thing that made it, like, for the spiritual experience very meaningful was that I can do it. It's not somebody else. It's not the rabbi. It's not the it's like, it's something that's in me. And, it's like enod milvado, in the sense of like that God is God is everywhere, enod milvado kol haolam, like kvodo maleh olam, it's like his the divine and his holiness is everywhere. It's in me, it's in you, it's in the dog that's with me, like it's sitting in the circle, it's in the moon, it's in the sun, it's in the water, it's in the people that are around. And I feel that's like the feeling, the connection, that it's not separate from me. It's not something that's outside of me. It's not that like there's God there somewhere in some heavenly place and I have to try and reach there. No, what it is about is actually God is here. And it's about me listening inside and connecting to everything that's around me to feel that. So I felt that for me, and also I think for other people, was very meaningful to have a spiritual experience, to understand that it's not something somewhere outside that I have to reach for it, that I have to go and reach for it. Another thing that also made it meaningful in some places was also the communal experience, the being in community. Though I have to say that I also had a lot of just as many spiritual, meaningful experiences when I was on my own. It wasn't only communal, but something in the communal, and I guess for me also because I became a leader within the community. So you can't be a leader without the community. I mean, you can sit at home and do whatever you do, but you can't be a leader that way. You need the community to be so that was also something, being together with the community and feeling that the power you can't do on your own. You have to have the whole edel, so like you have like you have to have the flock so it's very powerful to have it and to have the spiritual experience being within the community and feeling it very powerful. And for me, another thing that's also very meaningful to have a spiritual experience was being a woman. It was like growing up in a Jewish Orthodox environment, like 50 years ago or 40 years ago. The women were not like, you're not part of the spiritual experience. Like you're just the observer from the back or from the side or from upstairs, but everything's happening everything's happening in the front there. And a few years ago, for the first time, I learned how to read, to read with te'amim in the Torah. And on Shavuot, I read the part of the Aseret Dibot. I just did this 3 years ago for the first time. And that was such a powerful experience. And I wrote something about it afterwards, about moving from the back behind the curtain up front and feeling that there's space for me there. I'm worthy. Okay. That I'm also worthy of having this powerful spiritual experience with the Sefer Torah, with everything that's inside of it, with the connection, holding the Torah, with going around with it, with dancing with it, which we also did in Avatila. Many, we've been celebrating like Simchat Torah and really having like women. But I feel that also that's something that's very, because this way as a woman, I can own it. Like I am a woman and I want to own it. So I think by owning the experience also helps to have a very powerful spiritual experience.
All of those elements are reminding me of the concept from Torah, lo b'shamayim hi, right? And it's talking about Torah in that way, that the law is not in heaven, but also that spiritual experience and the divine self, right? It's not in the heavens and it's not over the sea. It's on your heart and on your lips and in your place, and through music and through solo moments and community moments and this feeling of worthiness and openness, we're able to access that because it's already in us. That's really beautiful. So after having all of these powerful experiences and connecting spiritually in community, you're back in Israel, you've had this Yom Kippur, you were inspired to write music. You had the experience at Yom Kippur, and then what happened?
So after this experience in Yom Kippur, I was back in Jerusalem, and at one point I was going through another crisis in my life, and a friend of mine said, you need to meet this couple. And that was Rabbi Ruth Gen Kagan and her husband, Michael Kagan. And I came to Ruth actually for spiritual direction. And Ruth had just returned from Boulder, Colorado, after 2 years of learning and being ordained by Reb Zalman Shechter Shalomi. And she started Kabbalat Shabbat in her living room. Kabbalat Shabbat for all nations. And there were Christians and Muslims and Jews in this first Kabbalat Shabbat. I wasn't there yet. I was in spiritual direction with her. And I was learning from Ruth about Kabbalah and Chassidut and like the inner Torah, not just the outer Torah, but the inner life of Torah. And she was teaching me. And it started to really connect inside, to be part of me. And after just about a few months later, she said, would you like to lead Kabbalat Shabbat with me? And I said, sure, why not? And then on our first Kabbalat Shabbat, she invited me to the living room, and I took my guitar, and she opened up the liturgy of Kabbalat Shabbat, and she said, from every Tehillim, you choose one pasuk and one verse. And I took a verse, I picked up my guitar, and I wrote 6-7 tunes, I think, that evening, which some of them we still sing until today. And
like which ones? Now I want to hear which ones.
Okay, Asher Lo Hayam was written there. Asher Lo Hayam Ve'hu Asahu. Hod Vehadav, also from Psalm 96, was written then. Sham'a V'tismach, I'm not sure, but Zamul Adonai Bechino, Zamul Adonai Bechino, Bechino Veko, that was written there. Be'amud Anan was written there. Yicholel Ayalot was written there. And I even think that my first Lechadodi was written there, the waltz Lechadodi. So there was a lot of music that came up that night. And prayer became part of the spiritual direction with Rabbi Ruth, was really learning from me how to pray, And one of the main things that I learned from Rabbi Ruth was praise, tehillah, which is something very like praise as part of prayer. In the book that Rabbi Ruth wrote together with Reb Zalman in Hebrew called Kirvat Elohim, they write there about tefillah. Tefillah has many different parts of it. It has the praise, and it has the gratitude, and it has the request. There's many different parts to it. And the praise was something that I really added into my personal life very strongly since I met Rabbi Ruth.
I think that's so interesting, looking at tefillah in those different facets. I think gratitude is often the easiest one. And so I'm wondering where praise came in. I can think for myself how it might be challenging for someone, but how had it been challenging to you? And how did Rabbi Ruth's understanding of tehillah of praise make it possible for you to adopt that into your own prayer life and have an impact on you?
I think that one of the things that I learned very powerfully is that, which is also something that I think both Reb Zalman and Ruth received also from the Christian world, the power of praise to transform, to really make a change. And sometimes I would come to the spiritual direction with Rabbi Ruth, and I'd be in a difficult place. I'd be in a place that was, like that was dark and I couldn't see things clearly. And she said, okay, take the guitar, let's praise. And we'd sing, Kol HaNeshama Tehallel, anything from Kol HaNeshama all the way to I release and I let go, I let the spirit run my life. It's like taking from all whatever was felt that I would embody, that I felt very close with. And I really felt the power of transformation that could happen from praise. And it really isn't easy to do. When it's very easy to go up on a mountain and see the sea and the beautiful sea and the beautiful lakes and waterfalls and be in praise and beautiful praise for God's making in the world. It's much harder to be in praise when you're and that's when the transformation can really happen. And that was something that I really took into my life. That was like a very, very important part of my prayer life. And we would start every meeting together, later on, every rehearsal, before every Kabbalat Shabbat, before every performance, before every sadhana, with prayer of praise. Like, I praise you for this moment. I praise you for my breath. I praise for the beautiful sunshine that came out today. I praise for the birds. It's not only the gratitude for the personal things, that's the gratitude. The praise is just for the praise that's here. I praise for breath. I praise for the air that comes in. So that was a real new and different learning for me through the teachings of Rabbi Ruth.
That's beautiful. I'm definitely going to take that with me. I'm thinking now about this kind of almost Hamish, this, small and intimate living room gathering. How did that grow into Navat Tehillah? When did that formalize? And also, what do you think kept drawing people into the experience of it as it was forming?
I think for the first year also, like at some point after a few months, Ruth had Yoel come to her for spiritual direction. And there was a time where we were leading it alternately with Rabbi Ruth. One time was me and Rabbi Ruth, and one time was Yoel and Rabbi Ruth. And after a little while, it became the three of us. And Yoel also composed a lot of music as well for Kabbalat Shabbat. And we were really composing a lot of music. We did rehearsals of hours together that Ruth used to record everything, all our experiments and many different things. And I think after, I would say probably 2.5 years, maybe 2 years that we were doing this, the people started coming more and more. And at the beginning, the people would come also for the potluck dinner that we would do after the Kabbalat Shabbat. And then we'd have like this long oneg until the middle of the night and teaching and music. And as we wrote more music and more musicians came, it became like the center of the evening was the actual Kabbalat Shabbat. And more people came to the house. The house became too small. And we had to move into a different place. And I remember the first time we moved into that different place was just under 3 years from when we started the first Kabbalat Shabbat. It was just Yoel, Ruth, and I, and suddenly 150 people came. And that was a real surprise for us. And it was a really big surprise for us. And we understood, okay, it's not enough, just the three of us. We need more musicians. And then we just sent out like a message to God. If this is what you want us to do, like bring us more, I need more musicians to lead and help and be with us on this journey. And then slowly, just many more musicians just came along, came to the Kabbalat Shabbat and joined us. And slowly we created what we called the Levite Circle. At the beginning, it used to be just people would jam, they would come and we would decide what we're going to, just before Yoel and Ruth and I, like we would say we're doing these and these tunes and people would sing together. And slowly it became more formalized. Like we had like the Levite circle, and we had people come and join us and do rehearsals with us, and we made pages with chords and with words. It was a process in learning for us as well. It's not as if we had something in mind and we said, oh, this is what we want to do. Things just happened. We looked to see what was happening around us, and we just said yes. And it was constantly asking for guidance from the divine of what the divine wants us to do. And, many times people said to us, how come you managed to hold out so many years together? Like, they have these they say about bands, after years, they fall apart. And I said, because we're not a band, we're prayer leaders. And because we always kept God in the scene. It's like God never, we never put God outside of the scene. And it's not as if we didn't go through hardships and difficulties and things, things in between us. But it was always calling God in to guide us. And I feel that that's what really allowed us to stay together for so many years, and to also be able to have such a big influence on many people and communities and the Jewish music world, Jewish musical prayer world.
Yeah, let's stay on that thread for a minute, because we've talked about this. Sometimes I'll gush to you or Yoel. I'll say, do you realize, I hope you realize how big of an influence you've had. What do you see has been so inspiring? I mean, I have my own theories, but I'd love to hear yours. Why has Nava Tehillah, why do you think Nava Tehillah has been so influential, instrumental, and transformative in the way that liberal Jewish communities do tefillah?
It's a great question. I'm actually not positive that I have the answer to it. I think that there's two sides to it. I think we brought in our sort of model of prayer leading. First of all, we brought lots of new music. And I think that something that was the works in our music, especially like in the North American world, I think we brought an Israeli Middle Eastern taste to it. Until today, like I can hear the difference between the things that we brought to the a lot of wonderful, amazing North American Jewish music. And still there's something from the Israeli taste. And I think it has to do also that as Israelis who grew up with so many influences of what we call like world music from all over, that taps into many different tunes. And also because we are Hebrew speakers, and I mean that there's many times there's a very strong connection between the words and the music. It's like, because we really feel the words, we understand them and feel them, and we live upon them. It's like it's our language. So I think the compositions can feel that as well. So first of all, I think it's really the music within the model of prayer that became very communal, participatory, egalitarian, and I think the ecstatic, like we call it like the neo-Hasidic style of prayer. So it's neo because it's like we're women, we're instruments, it's not like the Hasidim in the 18th century in Europe, but that sense of like the sense of devotion, ecstatic, personal prayer, that it's not just the reform cantor standing on the bima. Many times I felt that when we came into Reform synagogues, sometimes it felt that prayers were a little bit like a concert. Like you come and you watch, and the idea that people can be part of it, that they're just as important, they're just as meaningful. And I think that's something that was really accepted. And when you sit in a circle, everybody is in the same distance to the center. There isn't somebody that's closer or farther. That's what it is, sitting in a circle. Everybody, like the divine, is in the center, and everybody can connect. There's nobody that needs to be further than anybody else. And I think something about the the power of the personal and participatory experience is very meaningful, that I think caught on to a lot of communities.
I agree. And I'm so grateful for it. I know that your music and even just way of looking at prayer has had a huge impact on me in my life. And I agree that I think Navat Tehillah melodies are simple, but they're not simplistic, right? They're easy to catch on. They're easy to learn how to sing, but within them, there's depth and word painting and complexity without feeling distant. And you're right, the being in the circle is powerful. And also, I think permission to just take a line and sing that line over and over and dig into the words and be with them. It forces us to slow down in the liturgy. And I think that's another great gift of the canon and of the model that Navat Tehillah helped teach to at least North American communities.
I agree. The slowing down, I totally agree. And it's also, in addition to the slowing down, it's also moving your mind away from it. It's like when you repeat something again and again and again, at one point, it's like your mind stops, trying to understand it, trying to interpret it, and the Jewish mind is so busy trying to understand. I have to understand, I have to learn, I have to read. And there's something about the chanting again and again that really starts to calm down the mind and to let go into the experience of chanting. And it's true what you said, that I really think that it's Hebrew, but because we sing a short verse with a few words, I think it really caught on to a lot of people in North America, because it's much easier to just sing, a chant of 6 words than a whole psalm, trying to understand all the words. And you give also, in addition, the part of the model was the idea of giving kavanot, which means you how do you say letavech, to mediate. You mediate the words to the people and give it also a personal meaning. It can be connected to something that's happening in the world today, something that's happening in in the outer world or in the inner world. And it's not just the pshat of the pasuk. It's not just the simple meaning of the pasuk. You say hod v'hadar lefanav oz v'tiferet b'mikdasho. So it seems like you're talking about the temple of God, but God's temple. But it can be also the temple of the heart. You can connect to the temple of the heart and to what's happening inside. And I think that also brings people feel closer to it. That there's a permission to befriend the text, to become friends with the text.
I love that idea, permission to befriend the text. I think it also gives us permission, as you said, to be devotional, to lean into the ecstatic in a community that is incredibly intellectual, wonderfully so often. It's an amazing quality. And I think there's something about the inherently spiritual that scares a lot of people. Tefillah, in the way that we're talking about it now, is incredibly vulnerable, especially when you're in a circle. Everybody can see you. You can see everyone. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to vulnerability as it relates to Tefillah, and how you and Navat Tehillah, in planning a structure for the service, what do you think you do to give people permission and the courage to be vulnerable?
That's a beautiful question, Eliana. I feel that you, even in the question, you gave also the answer to it, which is, so I'll elaborate a little bit more, but it's really beautiful, because tefillah is something that can be very, very personal and vulnerable. It's really, you're exposing yourself to the most inner, gentle, and vulnerable place. And you really have to create a very, very safe space in order for people to feel comfortable enough. And I'm sure there would be plenty of people that would say, we came to the prayer in Navat Tehillah and we didn't feel comfortable enough, to safe enough to do it, which is fine. There are also people who need that can only do it when they're on their own, or can only do it with, a few people. We had in our Kabbalot Shabbat between 200 to 300 people. We led Kabbalot Shabbat at the Kala the Jewish Renewal Kala, which had 500-600 people. So it's not so easy to create a space for that people will feel comfortable. But at the same time, we did do many things to in order for it to feel very safe and special. So first of all, I think the kavanah of the leadership to be in a place of service. It's like the leadership, many times it's people who are either intellectual or very talented, rabbis or cantors or prayer leaders or musicians. And it's constant work on the ego, because we always, we want to give place for the ego. And it's a constant place of being reminded that we're doing this in service of God and the community. And it's, I've been doing this for 17 years. There's always more work to do. It's a never ending work to find that place of humility, which really helps people to feel safe. When you feel that the people that are leading you are in the same, they're in the same level. We're facilitating and leading, but we're still all in a mode of prayer. So I think that's one of the things. Another thing that really helps to feel safe is the actual creating of the physical space, making sure that it's, we would come before Kabbalat Shabbat like a whole hour before and set the space and set the circles and make sure that the whole space is clean and clear from any kind of spiritual or physical clutter. It's creating a space that's very clear, and also knowing what the rules are, which means we're starting at this and this hour, we're ending at this and this hour. It's not like you start at Kabbalat Shabbat and people have no idea when you're going to finish. It's like you can start at 6 and then maybe end, I've gone to like Kabbalat Shabbat that you come at 6 and then, like they end till 10 and 11 o'clock and you have no idea what's happening. So I think when people have a sense of safety, knowing we're coming like for an hour and a half or we're coming for 2 hours and there's a Kabbalat Shabbat, and knowing that we have permission to, we can either sing the chant for, like 10 minutes or also be in meditation and silence. It's giving people the rules and the permission. You can come as you are. You're not allowed to talk. It's not about having, chit-chatting during the, it's giving all these little rules so people know what they're coming for. They know what they're coming for. They know what they're permitted to do. They know that we are here to hold them together. That's like in a sense in the physical space and the leadership space. And then also musically, one of the things that are very meaningful to keep people in a place where they can be very vulnerable is, the chants can be very, very long, and they can take maybe, like 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes sometimes. And people don't know when it's finishing. But if you have a style that does give them some kind of a sign, because you're singing, you're chanting, you're all ecstatic, and suddenly the guitar just, if it stops suddenly and you're still continuing singing, that's very embarrassing. That's very, very embarrassing. Like you're still, so you slow down quietly from one round to another round to another round, and people get the idea, and then they feel very safe that they can go together with you. That's also a way to keep, things more safe for people. Another way to keep it very safe and for people to feel comfortable is giving an example, which means you want people to get up and dance. As a leader, you get up and dance. You get up and dance. You show that it's possible. And people can then, get you to give permission to dance, to sing, to clap your hands. People, not very many people, especially not in North America, where people are more inhibited than they are in Israel. What we would do sometimes in Kabbalot Shabbat, that we led in places in the States, I would literally go down to the pews and take out people, take their hand and, take more people and dance out. And many times people would say to me, I didn't have the courage to do it myself. Thank you for coming. Thank you. So that also gives a sense of safety. And also to allow, there were times when I would come and I wanted to pull people out of the pews, and they would say no. And I'd say, I use my Israeli chutzpah sometimes, but sometimes, to respect the people, people have their own, have their limits and what's good for them and what's not good for them. And it's also very important to respect those limits and not to push them, over the boat. And at the same time, I totally understand that there are also people that this kind of ecstatic prayer is too much for them. And that's fine too. Thank God we have so many different ways and places and forms to pray. And people need to choose the place that's suitable for them. So it's suitable for people that are, that want to have this kind of an ecstatic prayer. But we've had also many people that have just sat and meditate, like while we're dancing, going around, they've just sat in silent meditation, and that's perfectly fine.
I want to take everything you just said and create a handbook. Like, this is it. This is it. It's not just the melodies are incredible, the music is incredible, but also the way that all of you create a container that makes it more possible for someone to have a spiritual experience. I think that is an incredible lesson that has made it over here to North America more and more. I mean, I saw y'all on tour in concert in a variety of different settings. I remember at everyone, Oseh Shalom, at the end of the concert, you get the tambourine, you pull everybody out, we all dance around, right? That's how it ends. It's very powerful. That's the climax of it. But even like at the Union for Reform Judaism biennial, doing a service with all of those people in that room and still being able to create that moment. I'm wondering if there's anything that you learned in your years touring around North America that influenced your understanding of Jewish life or your own prayer life. What did you learn from that?
I learned a lot. From, and I say it many times that, I learned a lot from North Americans. And I would even say until today that the kind of prayer, the kind of Jewish spiritual prayer that is most meaningful for me, the people who I can do it with them are in North America. They're not in Israel. And that's sad for me because I'm not American and I don't want to live in North America. I want to live here. And there's something about the open, liberal way of treating Judaism, which Israel has a lot to learn from, a lot. Israel it's advancing in very, very small steps. But the openness to experience a Jewish spiritual life, a very open and not demanding, is something that Israelis don't know. And unfortunately, the combination between Judaism and spirituality in Israel is not very strong. There's like Judaism, there's a lot of like new like reform communities, but I call them the reform communities in Israel are the Litwaks. They're not the Hasidim. They're like, it's very cultural. It's very like social justice. It's not about a spiritual ecstatic prayer. And I don't have a lot of partners for that in Israel, and I have many more partners for that in the States. And I loved it every time I came, and especially when we came to the different conferences, like the biennials and the Kala, like to feel like like-minded people who are very deeply connected to the Jewish tradition, but in a very spiritual, liberal, and open way, like women leading, musical leading, through yoga, through dance, through art, and that's something very special that I feel very deeply connected, and I feel a little bit sad that I don't have enough partners here in Israel for that.
Me too. It makes me sad too. But I hope, I don't know if it's some sort of consolation to know that the ripple effect, I think maybe it happened quicker here, but I hope there's a ripple effect that's happening there as well. I actually, in all of my travels to Israel, was never there on a Friday night where you were doing Kabbalat Shabbat. So I've never actually got to do one with Nava Tehillah in Jerusalem. But I have still felt the ripples of that. So given, the pandemic and all of those things and just where you are in your life now, how is Tefillah? Where is Tefillah sitting with you these days? How have you been thinking about it and experiencing it in your own life?
That's a great question. These last 2 years have not been easy. I actually started to, even before the pandemic started to reduce the amount of touring to come back to the States. And the pandemic really hurt our, doing our Navatila experience because, it hurt everybody. We're not special, but doing things, ecstatic music and prayer through the screen, it's just not possible. What ecstatic prayer is about, many times I would give this metaphor, it's about lighting the fire. Now, you can't light the fire when you have two logs that are sitting like 50 or 100 or 1,000 kilometers away. They have to be touching each other to make fire. And we tried at the beginning of the pandemic, we did a Kabbalat Shabbat every week on the Zoom, and we did our best. It was very challenging for me. We moved, and then we could start meeting like outdoors, and we did it, but it hasn't yet come back to what it was before the pandemic. I'm not sure it will. Don't know, things, it's had a very, very big influence. I haven't been traveling to the States at all. I was even supposed to be now, and I traveled to be together with you. I was in this conference and also leading some Kabbalot Shabbat, and it was canceled because of the pandemic. Prayer at the moment has reduced mostly to being in my own really personal life together with my husband that I married 2 years ago. Like that was the pandemic brought me my husband and a home together. And the prayer is really something that here and there I did, we do a once a month Kabbalat Shabbat. I tried to do some Kabbalot we tried to do in our own home here, but it was also hard to do. I don't feel I have enough partners to really pick it up. And the energies they're not as like the pandemic, I feel, has put me down a bit. But I feel like some kind of a change is coming, and I don't know what it is yet. And I feel that God is asking me to let go of like what I know in order to open up. So I try to let go. I'm not always so good at that. Sometimes I fight with the letting go and opening up for something new without knowing what it's going to be. That's the hardest. But that's where we receive the biggest gifts. So the tefillah in my personal life is there. I wake up in the morning with my modani lefanecha and go to bed, sometimes with saying the Shema before I go to bed and singing from time to time. But I feel that there's something new coming my way, and I don't know yet what it is. And I try to remember and to keep the trust in the divine that I feel that I know so well, to know that the right thing is going to come at the right time.
Amen. I feel that prayer. I repeat it back to you. The right thing is going to come at the right time.
Thank you.
Thank you so, so much, Daphna, for taking the time to speak with me today. I hope against hope that we get to be in the same room singing together very soon.
Amen. Amen to that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you inviting me, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
Always, always. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you are able to take away some wisdom and goodies from this interview. Thank you to our editor, Christy Dodge. Thank you to Yafa Englander, who puts together our show notes. Please check out those show notes wherever you got this podcast or at elianalight.com/podcast. The theme song is A New Light by me. But we are going to end the show with Shaviti by Daphna Rosenberg. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you soon.